I stood in the garage, the cold concrete seeping through my thin-soled heels, the hum of the wedding reception vibrating faintly through the walls. The air smelled of oil and dust, a far cry from the lavender and champagne wafting through the venue I'd spent years building. My daughter-in-law, Claire, had orchestrated this humiliation with surgical precision. "It's just for a little while, Evelyn," she'd said, her smile sharp as a blade, guiding me to a folding chair in this dim, forgotten corner. "We need the space for the guests." Guests? As if I, the mother of the groom, the woman who owned this very estate, was some stray to be tucked away. I clutched the edge of the chair, my knuckles widening, and let the sting of her words settle into my bones. This wasn't just about seating arrangements. This was a declaration of war. I'd always known Claire was ambitious. From the moment my son, Daniel, brought her home, her eyes gleamed with a hunger that went beyond love. She was charming, polished, a lawyer with a tongue that could cut through steel. But I saw the calculation in her gaze, the way she sized up our family's legacy like a predator circling prey. The venue, Willow Crest, was my life's work. A sprawling estate I'd transformed from a crumbling manor into a premier wedding destination. It was my pride, my refuge after my husband's death, my gift to my children. Daniel adored it, or so I thought. But Claire, she saw it as a stepping stone. The garage door creaked, and I flinched, half expecting Claire to return with another saccharine excuse. Instead, it was my daughter, Sarah, her face flushed from dancing. "Mom, what are you doing out here?" she whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. I forced a smile, unwilling to burden her on her brother's wedding day. "Just taking a breather," I lied. Sarah frowned, unconvinced. But before she could press further, Claire's voice cut through the air, calling her back to the reception. Sarah hesitated, then squeezed my hand and left. Alone again, I felt the weight of betrayal settle deeper. Claire hadn't just sidelined me. She'd erased me from my own son's wedding. I stood, smoothing my dress, and paced the garage, my mind racing. The reception was in full swing laughter, clinking glasses, the band playing some upbeat tune. I could picture Claire at the center of it all, radiant in her designer gown, basking in the spotlight she'd stolen. Daniel, my sweet, oblivious boy, would be by her side, unaware of the slight against his mother. I'd raised him to be kind, to trust, but had I raised him to be blind? The thought twisted in my gut. I'd spent decades building a family, a business, a legacy, only to be relegated to a folding chair in my own garage. Then, a memory surfaced sharp and vivid. My late husband, Thomas, standing in this very garage years ago, his hands stained with grease as he tinkered with an old car. "Evelyn," he'd said, his voice warm, "this place is ours. No one can take that from us." But someone was trying. Claire wasn't just after control. She wanted to rewrite our story, to make Willow Crest hers. I stopped pacing, my breath steadying. No, I wouldn't let her. I'd fought too hard, lost too much. If Claire wanted a battle, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I slipped out of the garage, the cool night air hitting my face as I moved toward the main house. The reception glowed in the distance, a constellation of lights and music. My office was upstairs, tucked away from the festivities. I climbed the stairs, my heart pounding, not with fear, but with purpose. On my desk lay the deed to Willow Crest, a document I'd held onto through every hardship. I traced my fingers over the paper, the weight of my decision settling in. Selling the Vinyami life's work would be a blow to Claire's ambitions, a strike she'd never see coming. but it would also mean letting go of everything I'd built. Was I ready to burn it all down just to prove a point? The phone on my desk gleamed in the low light. I knew a developer, Richard Hayes, who'd been after Willow Crest for years. He'd offered millions, envisioning condos where my gardens now stood. I'd always refused. But tonight, the idea felt less like a betrayal and more like justice. I dialed his number, my fingers steady. "Richard," I said when he answered, my voice low but firm. "You still interested in Willow Crest?" "I'm ready to talk." His surprise was palpable, but he didn't hesitate. "Name your price." "Evelyn." I glanced out the window, where Claire's laughter floated up from the reception. "I'll call you back in an hour," I said, hanging up. I returned to the garage, my resolve hardening with every step. Claire thought she could humiliate me, diminish me in my own home. She'd underestimated me. I wasn't just Daniel's mother or the widow of Thomas Grayson. I was Evelyn Grayson, the woman who'd built an empire from ashes. And I was done playing nice. The garage felt smaller now, its walls closing in as my decision took root. I sat back on the folding chair, the metal cold against my thighs, and let the sounds of the reception wash over me. The band had switched to a slower tune, and I could hear the murmur of toasts, the clink of glasses. My son was out there, celebrating his new life with a woman who'd just stabbed me in the back. The irony wasn't lost on me. Daniel's wedding, meant to be a moment of unity, had exposed a fracture I hadn't wanted to see. I closed my eyes, picturing his face, his boyish grin, the way he'd clung to me after Thomas died. He was still my son, but Claire had drawn a line, and I was about to cross it. I thought back to the early days of Willow Crest. Thomas and I had poured everything into a tour savings. Our dreams, our sleepless nights. We'd fought banks, contractors, even each other, to make it work. When he passed, I carried on alone, turning grief into grit. Every garden, every chandelier, every brick of that estate was a testament to our love, our resilience. Claire didn't understand that. To her, Willow Crest was a status symbol, a backdrop for her Instagram perfect life. She'd never know the sweat and tears embedded in its walls. And now, she'd made it clear she didn't want me in her picture. My phone buzzed, snapping me back to the present. It was Sarah, texting, "Where are you? People are asking." I typed a quick reply, just needed some air. "Be there soon," and set the phone down. I couldn't face the crowd yet, not with my heart racing and my mind spinning. Selling Willow Crest wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my dignity. But the cost was steep. Daniel would be devastated. Sarah, too. They'd grown up running through those gardens, their laughter echoing in the halls. Could I really take that away from them? I pushed the doubt aside. Claire had started this. I'd finish it. I stood and slipped back into the house, avoiding the main hall where the reception was in full swing. The upstairs hallway was quiet, the glow of the chandeliers casting long shadows. My office felt like a sanctuary, the one place Claire's influence hadn't touched. I sat at my desk, the deed still in front of me, and pulled up Richard's number again. This time, I didn't hesitate. "Richard, it's Evelyn. I'm selling. 10 million. Cash. No contingencies. Can you make it happen tonight?" His voice crackled with excitement. "Tonight? Evelyn, that's tight. But I can pull some strings. I'll need a few hours to get the paperwork ready." I nodded, though he couldn't see me. "Do it," I said, and hung up. The weight of what I'd just done hit me like a wave. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. This wasn't just about Claire. It was about May, about proving I wasn't invisible, that I wouldn't be erased. But doubt crept in again. What if I was wrong? What if Daniel knew about Claire's plan and approved? The thought made my chest tighten. I'd always believed in his loyalty. But love could blind even the best of us. I needed to know. I needed to see his face, to gauge his complicity. I slipped downstairs, staying in the shadows as I approached the reception hall. Through the glass doors, I saw Daniel, his arm around Claire, both of them laughing as they cut the cake. He looked happy, blissfully unaware. My heart ached. Had he even noticed I was missing? I scanned the room for Sarah, spotting her near the bar, her expression tight. She caught my eye and started toward me, but Claire intercepted her, whispering something that made Sarah's face fall. I turned away, my resolve hardening. If Daniel was complicit, I'd deal with that later. For now, Claire was the architect of this insult, and she'd pay the price. Back in my office, I began gathering documents, tax records, property surveys, anything Richard might need. My hands moved mechanically, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying every moment of the past year. Claire's subtle digs, her insistence on controlling the wedding plans, the way she'd sideline me at every turn. I let it slide, chalking it up to her being a perfectionist. But this, banishing me to the garage, it was a power move, pure and simple. And I wasn't powerless. Not yet. The phone rang again. Richard. Evelyn. I've got a buyer lined up. They're ready to wire the deposit tonight. Can you meet me at the notary in 2 hours? 2 hours. The reception would still be going. I could sign the papers and be back before anyone noticed. I'll be there, I said, my voice steady. I hung up and looked out the window. The party glowed below, a mockery of everything I'd built. Claire thought she'd won. She was about to learn how wrong she was. I slipped out of the house through a side door, avoiding the glow of the reception. The night air was crisp, carrying the faint scent of roses from the garden. My car was parked behind the garage, out of sight from the guests. I climbed in, my hands trembling as I gripped the wheel. The drive to the notary's office was only 20 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. Every mile stretched my resolve thinner, the weight of my decision pressing against my chest. Selling Willow Crest wasn't just a jab at Claire. It was a seismic shift, a rewriting of my family's future. I pictured Daniel's face when he found out. The confusion, the hurt. Would he understand? Or would he see me as the villain? The notary's office was a small, fluorescent-lit room in a strip mall, a stark contrast to the elegance of Willow Crest. Richard was already there, his suit slightly rumpled, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of a deal. Evelyn, you're sure about this? He asked, sliding a stack of papers across the table. I nodded, my throat tight. Let's get it done. The notary, a tired-looking woman in her 60s, barely glanced up as she stamped the documents. I signed my name, Evelyn Grayson, in a steady hand, each stroke a declaration of defiance. The deposit was wired, the deal sealed. Willow Crest was no longer mine. Driving back, I felt hollow, as if I'd left a piece of myself on that table. But there was no turning back. The reception would be winding down soon, the guests none the wiser. I imagined Claire's face when she learned the venue she'd so casually claimed was gone, sold out from under her. The thought brought a flicker of satisfaction, but it was fleeting, overshadowed by the ache in my chest. This wasn't just about Claire. It was about Daniel, Sarah, the family I'd fought to hold together. Had I just torn it apart? I parked behind the garage again, slipping back into the shadows. The reception was still alive, the music louder now, the guests looser with wine. I hovered near the edge of the garden, watching from a distance. Claire was on the dance floor, her arms around Daniel, her smile triumphant. She thought she'd won, that she'd cemented her place as the new matriarch. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. Let her have her moment. It wouldn't last. Sarah found me again, her face pale. Mom, where were you? I've been looking everywhere. Her voice was sharp with worry, but I couldn't tell her the truth not yet. I needed to handle something, I said, keeping my tone light. She frowned, her eyes searching mine. This is about Claire, isn't it? What she did. Putting you in the Garagite's not right. Her words caught me off guard, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. Sarah saw through Claire's facade, even if Daniel didn't. I squeezed her hand. Don't worry about me, sweetheart. Go enjoy the party. She hesitated, then nodded and returned to the reception. I stayed in the shadows, my mind racing. The sale was done, but the fallout was coming. I needed to face Daniel, to explain before Claire twisted the narrative. I made my way to the main hall, slipping through a side entrance. The crowd was thinning, some guests already leaving. I spotted Daniel near the bar, alone for the first time all night. His tie was loose, his face flushed with joy. My heart twisted. He looked so much like Thomas in that moment, open, unguarded, full of hope. Daniel, I said, my voice softer than I intended. He turned, his smile fading slightly. Mom, where have you been? Claire said you weren't feeling well. The lie stung, but I kept my expression neutral. Can we talk? Somewhere private. He nodded, following me to a quiet corner of the hall. I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. Did you know Claire put me in the garage during the reception? His brow furrowed, confusion clouding his eyes. The garage. What are you talking about? I studied his face, searching for deceit, but found none. He didn't know. Relief and anger warred within me that my son hadn't betrayed me. Anger that Claire had manipulated him so easily. She told me there wasn't room for me in the main hall. I said, my voice steady. She sat me in the garage. Daniel. On a folding chair. His jaw tightened, his eyes darkening. She wouldn't do that. There must be a misunderstanding. But his tone lacked conviction. He knew Claire's ambition, even if he didn't want to admit it. Before I could say more, Claire appeared, her smile faltering when she saw us. Evelyn, there you are? We were worried. Her voice was syrupy, but her eyes were cold. I met her gaze, my own unflinching. Were you, Claire? Or were you just keeping me out of the way? The air between us crackled, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of unease in her expression. She didn't know what I'd done. Not yet. Claire's smile tightened, her eyes narrowing as she stepped closer. Evelyn, I don't know what you're implying, but this is Daniel's day. Let's not make a scene. Her voice was smooth, but there was an edge to it. A warning. I held her gaze, my heart pounding with a mix of fury and triumph. She thought she could control this moment, just as she'd controlled everything else. But the deed was signed, the deposit wired. Willow Crest was no longer mine, and soon it wouldn't be hers to flaunt. I turned to Daniel, who looked caught between us, his eyes darting from me to his new wife. Daniel, I said, my voice low. We need to talk about what's been going on. Before he could respond, Claire linked her arm through his, pulling him close. Sweetheart, the photographer needs us for a few more shots. Evelyn, you understand, don't you? Her tone was dismissive, as if I were a child to be pacified. I clenched my jaw, fighting the urge to lash out. Not here. Not now. I'd chosen my battlefield, and it wasn't this crowded hall. I nodded, stepping back. Go ahead, Daniel. We'll talk later. He hesitated, his brow furrowed. But Claire tugged him away, her laughter ringing out as they disappeared into the crowd. I retreated to the edge of the room, my chest tight with anger. The reception continued, oblivious to the storm brewing. Guests twirled on the dance floor, their faces glowing under the chandeliers. I scanned the room for Sarah, needing her grounded presence. But she was nowhere in sight. My phone buzzed Richard again. Evelyn. The buyers thrilled. They want to meet tomorrow to finalize. You did the right thing. Did I? The words echoed in my mind as I slipped out to the garden. Needing air. Needing space to think. The night was cool, the stars sharp above the estate. I walked through the rose garden, my heels sinking into the soft earth. This place had been my sanctuary, a living monument to Thomas's memory. Selling it felt like severing a limb, but keeping it under Claire's influence was unthinkable. She'd already shown her hand banishing me to the garage was just the beginning. I could imagine her future plans, rebranding Willow Crest, erasing my name, turning it into her own empire. I'd be damned if I let that happen. I found Sarah sitting on a bench near the fountain, her dress shimmering in the moonlight. Mom, she said, standing as I approached. What's going on? You're scaring me. Her voice trembled, and I realized how much I'd been shielding her. I sat beside her, taking her hand. Sarah, Claire's been playing a game. She didn't just seat me in the garage by accident. It was deliberate. Sarah's eyes widened, then narrowed. I knew she was up to something. She's been pushing me out of the planning, too, acting like I'm in the way. Her words confirmed what I'd suspected. Claire wasn't just targeting me. She was carving out her place in the family, sidelining anyone who didn't fit her vision. I squeezed Sarah's hand, my resolve strengthening. I've taken care of it, I said, my voice steady. She frowned, searching my face. What does that mean? I hesitated, the weight of my secret pressing down. I couldn't tell her yet, not until the sale was final. Not until I'd faced Daniel. Trust me, I said. I'm protecting us. Sarah nodded, though her eyes were still wary. We sat in silence, the fountain's soft gurgle filling the space between us. I thought of Thomas, how he'd always said family was our strength. But what did you do when family turned against you? Claire wasn't blood, but she was Daniel's choice, and that made her part of us for better or worse. The worst was winning, and I just upped the stakes. I returned to the reception, steeling myself for what came next. The band was winding down, the guests starting to drift toward their cars. I spotted Daniel and Claire near the entrance, saying goodbye to friends. Claire's smile was flawless, but I saw the strain in her eyes. She knew I was a loose end, a threat she hadn't fully neutralized. I approached them, my heart steady now. Daniel, we need to talk. Now. Claire's smile faltered, but she recovered quickly. Evelyn, it's late. Maybe tomorrow. I ignored her, locking eyes with my son. It's important. He nodded, kissing Claire's cheek before following me to a quiet alcove. I took a deep breath, the words heavy on my tongue. Daniel, I sold Willow Crest tonight. His face froze, disbelief etched in every line. What? Mom, what are you talking about? I held his gaze, unflinching. I sold it. The deal's done. Claire wanted to take it from me, so I made sure she couldn't. His mouth opened, then closed, his eyes searching mine for answers I wasn't ready to give. The truth hung between us, raw and unyielding. Daniel's face crumpled, a mix of shock and betrayal. You sold Willow Crest. Mom, how could you? His voice cracked, and for a moment, he was my little boy again, looking to me for answers I didn't have. I wanted to reach for him, to explain, but the weight of his words pinned me in place. Daniel, you don't understand. I began, my voice low. Claire, she humiliated me. She sat me in the garage during your wedding, like I was nothing. This place, it's mine. I built it. And she tried to take it. His eyes widened, then narrowed, as if he were seeing Claire in a new light. The garage. She told me you wanted to rest. I nodded, the truth settling between us like ash. She lied. Daniel, she's been pushing me out, and you didn't see it. He shook his head, running a hand through his hair. This is crazy. You can't just sell our home, our legacy, because of a misunderstanding. His voice rose, drawing glances from nearby guests. I stepped closer, lowering my tone. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a power play. And if I let her win, she'll keep pushing Sarah, anyone who stands in her way. He stared at me, his jaw tight, torn between loyalty to his mother and love for his wife. I hated putting him in this position, but Claire had forced my hand. I need you to trust me, I said, my voice softer now. I did this for us, for our family. He didn't respond, his eyes distant, processing. Before I could say more, Claire appeared, her expression a mask of concern. Everything okay here? She asked, her voice dripping with false warmth. I met her gaze, my own unflinching. Just catching up, I said, my tone cold. She linked her arm through Daniel's, her smile unwavering. We should get back to the guests, sweetheart. He nodded, still dazed, and let her lead him away. I watched them go, my heart heavy but resolute. The sale was done, but the fallout was just beginning. I needed to find Sarah, to prepare her for what was coming. I slipped through the crowd, scanning for her familiar silhouette. She was near the bar, talking to a cousin, her face tense. I caught her eye and nodded toward the garden. She followed without a word. Outside, the night felt heavier, the stars dimmer. Mom, what's going on? Sarah asked, her voice low. I took a deep breath, the truth spilling out before I could stop it. I sold Willow Crest. Tonight. Her eyes widened, her mouth falling open. You what? Mom. Why? I explained everything: Claire's betrayal, the garage, the years of subtle slights that had built to this moment. Sarah listened, her expression shifting from shock to anger to something like understanding. She's been trying to control everything, she said finally. But selling the venue, that's huge. I know, I said, my voice breaking. It was the only way I could take back control. Sarah reached for my hand, her grip firm. I'm with you, Mom. But Daniel's going to be crushed. I nodded, the weight of her words settling in. I'd acted out of anger. Yes, but also out of love for my family, for the legacy I'd built. But had I gone too far? The question gnawed at me as we returned to the reception, the music now a faint echo in my ears. The guests were leaving, the hall emptying out. I saw Claire and Daniel near the entrance, their heads bent together, her hand on his arm. She was whispering something, her expression urgent. My stomach twisted. Was she spinning her own version of the story, painting me as the villain? I approached, my heart pounding. Daniel, I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. We're not done talking. Claire's eyes flashed, but she kept her smile. Evelyn, it's been a long night. Maybe we should all rest. I ignored her, focusing on my son. You need to know the truth. Claire's been manipulating you. Sidelining me. Sidelining Sarah. This wasn't just about the wedding. It's about control. Daniel's face hardened, his eyes flicking to Claire. Is that true? He asked, his voice low. Claire laughed. A sharp, nervous sound. Evelyn, you're blowing this out of proportion. I was just trying to make the day perfect. But Daniel's expression didn't soften. He was starting to see the cracks in her facade. I stepped back, letting the moment unfold. The sale was my weapon, but the truth was my shield. Claire could scheme all she wanted, but she couldn't erase what I'd done or what she'd done to provoke it. The night was far from over, and I was ready for whatever came next. The reception hall was nearly empty now, the last guests trickling out into the night. The chandeliers cast a soft glow over the scattered tables, littered with half-empty glasses and crumpled napkins. Daniel stood frozen, his eyes locked on Claire, waiting for her to respond. Her laughter had faded, replaced by a tight-lipped smile that didn't reach her eyes. Daniel, let's not do this here, she said, her voice low, almost pleading. But I wasn't letting her slither away. No, Claire, I said, stepping forward. Let's do it now? Tell him why I was in the garage. Tell him why you thought the mother of the groom didn't deserve a seat at her son's wedding. Her eyes flashed with something dangerous anger. Maybe. Or fear. Evelyn, you're making this into something it's not. We were short on space, and I thought you'd appreciate a quiet moment. Her words were smooth, practiced, but Daniel wasn't buying it. His jaw tightened, his hands clenching at his sides. A quiet moment. In the garage, he said, his voice sharp. Claire, what the hell is she talking about? For the first time, I saw her falter, her composure cracking under his scrutiny. I pressed my advantage, my voice steady. She didn't just seat me there. Daniel. She planned it. She wanted me out of the way. Out of your life. Out of Willow Crest. And I'm done letting her rewrite our family. Claire's face paled, but she recovered quickly, stepping closer to Daniel. Sweetheart. She's upset. She's twisting things. You know I'd never do that. But her words sounded hollow, and Daniel's silence was deafening. He looked at me, then back at her, his expression a storm of doubt and betrayal. Before he could speak, Sarah appeared, her face set with determination. Daniel, Mom's telling the truth. Claire's been pushing us both out. She didn't even want me in the bridal party until you insisted. Her words hit like a punch, and I saw Daniel flinch. Claire's eyes darted between us, her control slipping. This is ridiculous, she snapped, her voice rising. You're ganging up on me. On our wedding day. But her indignation felt forced, and Daniel's silence grew heavier. I took a deep breath. The moment I'd been dreading and craving finally here. Daniel, there's something else. I sold Willow Crest tonight. Claire's head snapped toward me, her mouth falling open. You what? She gasped, her voice a mix of shock and fury. Daniel's eyes widened, his breath catching. Mom, you said that before. But it's real. You actually sold it. I nodded, my heart pounding. The deal's done. The buyer's taking over tomorrow. Claire's face contorted, her mask finally gone. You spiteful old woman, she hissed, stepping toward me. You sold it because of me. Because of a stupid chair. I held my ground. My voice calm but unyielding. No. Claire. I sold it because you tried to take everything from Mimi home. My family. My dignity. You thought you could erase me. You were wrong. Daniel grabbed her arm, pulling her back. Claire. Stop. He said, his voice low but firm. Is this true? Did you put Mom in the garage? She hesitated, her eyes darting, searching for an escape. It was a misunderstanding, she said finally, her voice weaker now. But Daniel wasn't listening. He turned to me, his face raw with pain. Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner? Why go this far? The question cut deep, but I met his gaze. Because I had to protect what's ours. Claire's been playing a long game. Daniel. I just played a better one. He shook his head, stepping back, his hands raking through his hair. This is too much. I need to think. He turned and walked out of the hall, leaving Claire and me facing each other. Her eyes burned with rage. But there was something else there, fear. She knew she'd lost control, that her carefully constructed facade was crumbling. You've ruined everything, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I stepped closer, my own voice steady. No, Claire. You did. I turned and walked away, my heart heavy but my resolve unbroken. Sarah caught up with me, her hand on my arm. Mom, are you okay? She asked, her voice soft. I nodded, though I wasn't sure. The sale was done. The truth was out. But the cost was still unfolding. I'd struck back at Claire. But at what price to my family? As we stepped into the night, the weight of my choices settled over me. A burden I'd carry long after the music stopped. The night air was heavy as I stood outside, the last strains of music fading behind me. Sarah stayed close, her presence a quiet anchor in the storm I'd unleashed. The reception was over, the guests gone, leaving only the wreckage of my decision. Willow Crest, my home, my legacy, was no longer mine. I'd sold it to strike back at Claire, to reclaim my place. But the victory felt hollow. Daniel's face is shock. His pain haunted me. Had I gone too far? Had I let my anger blind me to the collateral damage? Sarah squeezed my hand. Mom, you did what you had to. Claire was out of line. Her voice was firm, but her eyes were worried, mirroring my own doubts. I nodded, forcing a small smile. I know. But Daniel, he's caught in the middle. She sighed, looking back at the hall where Daniel and Claire were still inside, no doubt grappling with the truth. He'll come around, she said, though her tone lacked conviction. He has to see her for what she is. We walked toward the house, the garden path illuminated by soft lanterns. I thought of Thomas, how he'd loved this place, how we dreamed of passing it down to our children. Selling it felt like betraying him, but letting Claire claim it was worse. I'd made my choice, but the consequences were only beginning to unfold. As we reached the porch, I heard footsteps behind us. Daniel, his face pale, his eyes red-rimmed. Mom, he said, his voice hoarse. We need to talk. Alone. Sarah hesitated, then nodded and went inside, leaving us in the quiet of the night. Daniel stood a few feet away, his hands shoved in his pockets, his shoulders slumped. I talked to Claire, he said finally. She admitted it. The garage. The lie she did it. She said she was stressed, that she didn't mean to hurt you. He looked at me, his eyes pleading for something I couldn't give. Why didn't you just talk to me? Mom. Why sell everything? His words cut deeper than I expected. I took a step closer, my voice steady. Daniel, I tried to talk. But Claire's been building walls around you. And I was losing you. Losing this. I gestured to the estate, its silhouette looming in the darkness. This place is me. Your father. Our family. She wanted to take that. To make it hers. I couldn't let her. He shook his head, his voice breaking. But you took it from us. Too. From me. From Sarah. How is that better? I flinched, his words striking at the heart of my doubts. I thought I was protecting you. I said, my voice softer now. Maybe I was wrong. But Claire's not who you think she is. He looked away, his jaw tight. I know, he said quietly. I'm starting to see that. But it's too much. He turned and walked back toward the hall, leaving me alone with the weight of his words. Inside, I found Sarah in the kitchen, making tea. The normalcy of it felt jarring, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night. He's hurting, I said, sinking into a chair. Sarah nodded, setting a mug in front of me. He'll come around. Mom. He just needs time. I sipped the tea, its warmth doing little to ease the cold knot in my chest. Time. Would it heal this rift? Or widen it? The next morning, the reality of the sale hit harder. Richard called to confirm the buyer's meeting, his voice brimming with excitement. Evelyn, they're ready to move fast. You'll be a wealthy woman by tomorrow. Wealthy. The word felt empty. I traded my home for money. For revenge. Was it worth it? I hung up, my mind racing. I needed to see Daniel, to bridge the gap before it grew too wide. I found him in the garden, sitting on the same bench where I'd talked to Sarah. He looked exhausted, his eyes shadowed. Daniel, I said, sitting beside him. I'm sorry. I acted out of anger, but it was also out of love. I couldn't let her take everything. He didn't look at me, his voice low. I get why you did it. But it hurts. Mom. This place it's home. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes. I know. But home isn't just a place. It's us. You. Me. Sarah. We'll rebuild. He finally met my gaze, his expression softening. I need to talk to Claire. Really talk. If she can't own this, if she can't change, he trailed off. But I understood. He was waking up, seeing the truth. And I'd be there, whatever came next. The morning sun filtered through the garden, casting long shadows across the roses. Daniel and I sat in silence, the weight of last night's revelations settling between us. I wanted to say more, to promise him that everything would be okay. But the words felt hollow. I'd sold Willow Crest, our home, our legacy, in a moment of fury and pride. And though it had been a strike against Claire, it had wounded us all. Daniel's eyes were fixed on the horizon, his expression unreadable. I'm going to talk to her, he said finally, his voice steady. I need to know who she really is. I nodded, my heart aching for him. Whatever happens, I'm here, I said. He gave me a small, tired smile, then stood and walked back to the house. I stayed on the bench, the morning air cool against my skin. The buyer's meeting was in a few hours, the final nail in the coffin of my decision. I thought of Thomas, how he'd have handled this. He'd always been the calm to my storm, the one who saw the long game. Would he have approved of what I'd done? Or would he have urged me to find another way? Sarah joined me, her face softer now, though worry still lingered in her eyes. Did you talk to Daniel? She asked, sitting beside me. I nodded, recounting our conversation. She listened, her hand resting on mine. You did what you thought was right, she said when I finished. Claire pushed you too far. But now, we need to figure out what's next. Her words were a lifeline, a reminder that I wasn't alone. We'll rebuild, I said, echoing my promise to Daniel. Together. The meeting with the buyer was brief, clinical. Richard and his team handled the details, their voices a blur as I signed the final papers. Willow Crest was gone, its gardens and chandeliers now someone else's dream. I felt a pang of loss, but also a strange relief. I'd taken back my power, even if it cost me everything. As I left the office, my phone buzzed. Daniel. Can you come to the house? Claire and I need to talk to you. My stomach twisted, but I agreed. When I arrived, Daniel and Claire were in the living room, the air thick with tension. Claire's eyes were red, her composure frayed. Daniel stood beside her, his expression resolute. Mom, he said, his voice steady. Claire's got something to say? She looked at me, her lips trembling. Evelyn. I was wrong. The garage. The wedding gift was a mistake. I was overwhelmed, and I took it out on you. I'm sorry. Her words were soft, but I saw the effort behind them, the fear of losing Daniel. I studied her, searching for sincerity. Why? Claire, I asked, my voice calm but firm. Why did you do it? She hesitated, then sighed. I felt like I had to prove myself. You're larger than life. Evelyn. Willow Crest. Your family, it's intimidating. I wanted to make my mark. Her honesty surprised me, but it didn't erase the hurt. You didn't just make a mark, I said. You tried to erase me. She flinched, but didn't argue. Daniel spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. We're going to work on this, Mom. But I need you to meet us halfway. Selling the venue. It's done. But we're still a family. His words hit me like a wave, a mix of pain and hope. I nodded, my throat tight. I want that, Daniel. But it's going to take time. Claire reached for his hand, and he let her take it. A small gesture of trust one wasn't sure she deserved. Later, Sarah and I sat in the kitchen, the house quiet around us. Do you think she means it? Sarah asked, her voice skeptical. I shrugged, sipping my tea. Maybe. But she's got a lot to prove. Sarah nodded, a small smile breaking through. We'll be okay, Mom. We always are. I reached for her hand, my heart swelling. She was right. We'd lost Willow Crest, but we hadn't lost each other. As the days passed, I began to rebuild not a venue, but a life. Daniel and Claire moved to a small apartment, their marriage strained but not broken. Sarah stayed close, her strength a mirror of my own. I invested the sale money into a new venture, a smaller event space, one I'd build with my children, not against them. Claire's apology was a start, but trust would come slowly, earned through actions, not words. And I was learning to forgive not just Claire, but myself. I'd acted out of anger, but also out of love. And in the end, that love would guide us home.